So hang with us. And want to say good morning to Mitch Conrad, good friend of mine. Mitch, if you got a golf game out there, this is a show to watch. So share with me as you watch any comments you have, and let us know how we're doing. And there is Jason. Did you accept my invitation, Jason? You're probably hearing me, so I want to make sure that you're on the split screen with me. Henry, it says I can't bring him on. It's still on the scent, see.
He's invited, but he's not accepting us.
We're not hot enough, Henry. That's right. There. Your viewers are waiting.
Did you show him how to do it?
Yeah, he's done it. He's got his own show out there.
On Facebook.
Yeah, he knows how to do it. Jason, you're able to hear me, so I'm gonna if we can't get this hooked up on the split screen, we're just gonna go audio. Let's try it again.
You ask him, he just has to say yes. If he knows how, he should be able to do it. He just has to say yes.
Jason, look on your screen and accept my invitation. That we've got everything hooked on this end. And if you need to, send me a message on my on your texting. All right, here's what's going to happen. Everybody that's out there with me, I'm gonna disconnect my live feed and I'm gonna reconnect. So hang on, Jason.
Once you're done, start it again,
Yeah.
except don't invite him. Go to the other side, just go live and see if he'll pop up there. Then
Yeah, that's a good idea.
This is new.
So go live video.
Yeah. Let's see if it'll invite him there. If you're good there, just
Oh yeah.
let's see if it adds.
Come on, give me my figures here. Here we go.
There you go. Invite him.
Okay, Jason, I'm trying to invite you. If you're seeing me, just say yes on my invitation. We'll get you on screen here.
Relationship market. That don't work like
Yeah, I don't. I love it when I got you watching. Did you accept my invitation to join me, Jason? Now we got you.
There you go.
Ha! You look good. We're going to get, so everybody that's out there, this is Jason Goldsmith. And I'm Lowel White. We're going to do a show today with the big word that's the umbrella word is about focus. But we're going to cut that up a little bit and use the word focus as a way to talk a little bit about golfers and your experience with golfers. Maybe have some extension into some other athletic performance as more metaphorical derivatives of what focus can do. But also talk about distractions and how things can kind of get in the way. And I love golf because there's so many factors, as you know, Jason, that you can't control.
Absolutely.
And so I want to get your thoughts on that. So give me your thoughts about where you're at today, what's coming up for you, and then we'll get into the show.
Okay, sure. So I have a lot of things going on. I'm very fortunate in that I get to work with two of my mentor coaches in Tom House, who you well know is probably the #1 rotational coach in the world. And then on the other side, on the mental side, I get to work with Deepak Chopra, who is probably the #1 mindfulness coach in the world. So extremely fortunate that I get to spend time with both of those guys, as well as these amazing elite level athletes in many different sports, primarily golf. But I do get to work with professional baseball, football, tennis, and have done really a little bit of hockey stuff. But in all these different sports, so I get to work with different athletes in different sports and continue to learn from all of these athletes what works and what doesn't work, and how the individual is different in what they need and how they learn.
Well, that's a great setup for today's show. So without any further ado, we're going to start the theatrical part of this and get us rocking and rolling with the beginning of the show.
Oh, America! Are you serious? It is showtime, baby! Here we go! Red Jam Slam! Man, it's awesome, baby! 360 Mindset, sharing skills and thrills wrapped by stories from elite performers and your favorite sports pros. So take your first step. Speak your first word with a foundation of positive thought that comes from 360 Mindset and your host, Coach Whiteman. Whoa, White. Let's get started. No excuses and no regrets.
Well, there's a lot of signals, and you know what that sound is, Jason. That's the sound of March Madness. And we've got the finals coming up this week as we started the show off. We talk about kind of what's going on in the world of sports around the country and around the world. And golf is starting, and on April 1st, this Sunday, you may be along with many millions of people around the world. We've got Easter, we've got Passover, and let's not forget April Fools, as well as the world's recognition of autism awareness. I'm kind of prone to be aware of that because Temple Grandin is right up the road in Colorado Springs, one of the wonderful advocates for autism. And along with that, we've also got Easter that we need to be aware of. Now, are you, here's my measurement for Easter, Jason. Are you a Pez guy or a chocolate guy or both?
I'm not really a Pez guy, and I would say that I'm not really a chocolate guy. If I had a choice, it would be Jelly Belly, Jelly Bean.
Oh my gosh, yes.
For Easter. So I'm going to throw an audible at the line at you.
Yeah, I like that.
And be more of the Jelly Belly guy.
Well, and see, I before Jelly Bellies came into play, I was the black jelly bean only. I picked those out of the bag and hoard those to the side for me. And then I would dish out all the flavors I don't like to people I know. Like the green ones, just time out on the green ones for me. I couldn't handle that. And then Jelly Bellies came in, and with my sarcasm, I was looking for the flavors that would just make everybody kind of gag and hoard the flavors I liked, like popcorn. I loved the popcorn one. That was really kind of my fave. So, yeah, Sweet Tooth.
I think they actually have a game out, which is about getting people to the faces people make when they eat a jelly bean that they didn't anticipate the flavor.
I think we can find those on YouTube, those faces. Actually, I really think we can.
Right.
So as we started the show with March Madness and that excitement, the Masters is coming up on April the 5th. And that's going to be kind of the environment I want to couch our remarks in, because that's not only the kickoff of, I mean, they've been playing golf for a while, the last few months around the country and around the world, but we've got the Masters as just a pinnacle event in Augusta, and I'm going to talk to you about your thoughts and predictions about that. But in the theme of what we're looking at today on focus, the first segment we have is on mindset. So when you're looking at creating this positive mindset, is there anything that kind of tips you off that the player has lost the focus? I mean, other than the obvious, the game isn't going well for them. That's obvious. Something's going on.
Well, the players that I work with, we spend a lot of time developing a mental routine that allows them to be athletic on the golf course or whatever the field of play is.
Yeah.
So because we spent so much time developing that routine, and I understand that routine so well, it's easy for me to pick up on the subtleties or the nuances that aren't part of the routine that let me know that they've either created some doubt, it's something they're not comfortable with. So that's very easy for me to pick up on with the athletes that I've worked with. If it was an athlete that I didn't work with, I would say it would be the number of looks when they're looking at something and how quickly their head moves would be an indication to me that they may or may not be comfortable in what it is that they're attempting to do. So
what you're saying is there are nonverbals that are obvious cues for you that could in fact trigger a response in their behavior from those cues that you want to be cognizant of. Now, I would imagine, like with me, you're not going to be able to make many adjustments in that moment. So in the practice prior to, do you do anything to simulate unexpected change that they have to adapt and adjust to, so they get this kind of letting go through this pressure outside of the event?
Well, if they believe in their process and they have believed in their physical ability, pressure is something that they've created. So it doesn't exist work on is limiting the amount of conscious thinking while they're performing. So it would tell me that they're out of process if they're feeling pressure.
Yeah, I gotcha. And that makes sense. Too often, as I'm sure you experience as well, talking to people who aren't the athlete or who aren't a support person of the athletic process don't quite get that, what you just said. They think, oh my gosh, there's something outside of me that's causing me to, and no, you create the thought, you're responsible for the thinking, and as you are responsible for moving that thought someplace else. So with that being said, are there particular kind of first start strategies you offer to the athletes so that, hey, when you get that thought in your head, for you to be able to clear it and go to stay in that place, what are some of your recommendations for the player?
Well, again, it's probably not fair, but I think, as you know, we created a technology called Focus Band that gives us an insight as to what's going on in the athlete's brain while they're performing. So
Yeah.
If it's a brand new junior player that I'm working with, or any kind of amateur player, we always start with that. So from the very first meeting, we start with what's going on in your brain while you're attempting to perform. And then what are some tools that we can develop that get you out of that high beta brainwave frequency and back into an alpha theta performance state. So from the very first meeting, we're teaching them that everybody has these tools, and it's not allowing yourself to be hijacked by the emotion and buying into the reoccurring thought process, which is creating doubt or indecision. So it's very different for the people that we work with, because we have that insight, right away on day one.
Yeah.
And the person has that connection to their own ability to regulate their brain frequency and understand that that's something that's well within their control.
Now, let me give our audience a couple of examples that represents the beta comment you made and the alpha theta comment. I've worked with special forces people, and one of their examples is when they get their breathing to a place where they feel that heart rate at that optimal response level, and they pull themselves or kept themselves away from beta and stay in the alpha theta range, they're busting through a door and rippling a certain amount of bullets and seeing everything at the same time. In baseball, it's that pure spot that the hitter's stroke and positioning of the bat hits the dime-sized contact point of the ball, and that's where their brain and their body, their eyesight, everything is in that alpha theta zone with those responses. So you athletes out there, you don't have to be responsible for the beta and the alpha theta. Just know that when you work with people like Jason, you're going to get that kind of expertise to put you into the concrete examples that are relatable to your sport. So with that being said, Jason, what do the golfers learn? I mean, there's a lot of different parts in a swing. And in promoting the show, I talked about, how do you consistently hit a drive 300 yards every single time? Maintain that elite performance. And that's a small contact spot as well. So in that processing you're doing with the move from beta into the alpha theta range, are they getting cues and triggers in their mind that they feel that place that's going to give them that contact and follow through?
Well, again, what we have access to with our technology is to be able to measure that while they're performing. So there is no other company that has that kind of technology, which gives us that access during the action. So a player can have information while they're actually performing, and they're creating it themselves. So the idea that somebody can control the off-center hit of a golf ball, which at 100 and something miles an hour is going to travel 300 yards. 30 yards offline is a fifth of a dimple of a golf ball. So to fool yourself into thinking that that's something that's consciously controlled is just unrealistic.
Now, that being said, and I totally agree with you, and people need to get that in their heads as performance. Hey, you're not perfect. The chances of you being perfect are within those dimensions. As Mickelson said one time, the difference between me and the next guy behind me is not the dollars from my winning. It's that one putt or half of a putt that was the distinguishing feature between him and someone else. But there's that reinforcement through your techniques. There is auditory reinforcement, or there's a feel. Like the basketball player would say, I'm in the zone. But that's a little bit of a misnomer because, yeah, you might feel like you're in the zone, but the reproducibility of that is still, you can't predict that. You can't predict the outcomes.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that fully. I mean, I think that it's completely trainable. So, when people, they describe the zone, really what they're describing is their brain's ability to get into that high performance alpha theta state where they're not thinking about how to perform, they're just performing. So, to me, I do believe that the zone is something that is, or the idea of the zone is very trainable. And I work with, every level of athlete to achieve their zone for their specific skill level. So if you're a high elite performer, then, your own perception of how well you think you should play or your expectation on play may be higher than somebody that's, only been playing golf a few years.
Yeah.
But both are able to achieve the zone. So, I think it's, not fair to say that somebody who's just starting a sport doesn't get into the zone as well as a person that's at the top of their game.
And I'm glad you pointed that out, because my role here is not to always agree with you. It's to be the antagonist and bring out the points. So I want to make sure that everybody has heard what Jason has said, and that it is trainable. Not perfection necessarily as the final outcome, but repeatability, consistency, raising the probability of excellence. And the many times the starts of that is, as our theme is implied here, is the elite performer's focus and getting that as a reproducible. And they can actually feel the feeling of what that means because of the kind of training that, like yourself, has done. I want to also emphasize again, because we're at our quarter-hour break here, that Jason and True Golf, you are truly, as you say, one of the, if not the only, organization that has that biofeedback tool to provide golfers with that kind of insight. And
okay, you're back now. It froze for a second, but Focus Band is the name of the product. I use Focus Band. I'm involved in the business of Focus Band. So Focus Band is the product. True Golf Company is my golf business. So that's my golf coaching business. The business that we have with Deepak Chopra is a business called Beyond Performance Sports. The business that we have with Tom House is called KUHS or KUHS. And that's a very exciting business too, because that's a combination of all the things that Tom does and the combination of everything that we do on the mental side. So, all of those things, there's several different moving parts there. They're all similar, but they're all specific in their own way.
what's the best place to connect with you, Jason, if somebody doesn't quite know what parts they should connect with, but there's one place they can reach out to you to see which is the best fit?
Sure. So probably the easiest way to get a hold of me would either be goldsmithperformance.com or truegolfcompany.com. Either one of those will get you in touch with me. And then once you're in touch with me, I can kind of point you into whatever direction, we think you should go after that.
Awesome. And as I'm asking you about that in our break here, I also want to talk about another company that's a sponsor for us here. It's called Athos. I'm going to share this with everybody. Athos is an apparel company, but what's unique about this apparel is it has these computer sensors in the lining. And what's also very interesting is it is lined with a computer. It's called a core. And basically what it does, the shirt or the shorts, it monitors the muscle groups in your torso and your lower body so that just like with the headband, you get immediate wireless feedback to your mobile device as to how the athlete's performing in a given task. And agendas can be set up for workout agendas specifically. They've done some great work with empirical studies about renewal and recovery from injury, or just setting baselines at the beginning of a season and then gaining from there. So I want to make sure we talk a little bit about Athos and share that with you, because that's where it's going, isn't it, Jason? All this data that we can get now in an immediate basis for trainers. And that's kind of my segue into the next segment, which is on skills. Now, when I say skills, I don't mean the X's and O's. I don't mean the hand grip or the stroking process of your approach to a short shot or a drive. I'm talking about things like breathing, meditation, visualization, and how those types of tools in your toolbox can be applied to either reinforce or help to adjust and adapt to changes that might happen in the performance process of the athlete. So, what are your?
So if
No, go ahead, Jason.
so, yeah, I lost you there for a second, but it's really about awareness training. So if you have a meditative practice, that's fantastic. There are several different ways that you can work on mindfulness, but at the end of the day, it's being aware of the thoughts that you're having and understanding if they're appreciating or depreciating thoughts, and being able or being okay with your mind being still, not always having to be in this constant problem solving mode of creating problems and then trying to solve the problems that the mind creates. So, in my opinion, that's the most important, feature in having a regular mindfulness practice is developing that awareness. I am having a thought. Is that thought real?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's happening in this moment, or is it something that I've, projected from something that happened earlier, or am I in the future? Is it a time travel kind of a thought? But if it is happening in the present moment, is it useful or is it not useful? And then what are some of the tools that you have to get yourself back into a present moment state so that you can then make a good decision and move forward?
So with that description, let's apply it to the golfing scenario, because you go from hole to hole, and what you just said, you're basically going to repeat that every time you go from hole to hole to stay in that mindful place and not focus on any thoughts that aren't going to maintain that mindfulness within that par three, that par five, and each stroke in that process of getting to the end goal. So what are some of the things that you practice and or remind the athlete about regarding getting into the mindful state and then maintaining it?
So it starts with them understanding that they can create that state of being in neutral,
Mm-hmm.
Or being in the present moment. So it starts with that. And so what we want athletes to do is get themselves in that neutral present state, and then do their data gathering. So what is the shot that's presenting itself in front of me? Gather that data. So that's a conscious thinking, part of the equation.
Yeah.
So you go from being non-conscious and being present to this conscious thinking part of it. Then you make a decision. Okay, what's my intention? And then once you have a clear intention, then it's about, okay, now how do I get from intention back into the flow state? And what we figured out over the years is it's done with a question. So if you ask yourself, after you've gathered this information, you say to yourself, okay, what would a good shot look like here? And those are really the last words. So after that, now you're allowing the creative part of your brain, the playful part to figure out this solution. which is, okay, if I'm going to hit a high 8-iron draw into that tuck pin, what does a good shot look like? Your brain then creates that visual. From that visual, your body creates an image sensation. So now your body's prepared to make that action. And then we run what we develop, which is called the overt-covert awareness loop, which is just moving your eyes and your awareness between the target and the ball. That's what keeps your conscious mind occupied. And then you perform the action. After you perform the action, then you observe the outcome. And then you allow your subconscious mind to figure out, as far as patterning, did it match what you saw in the beginning? And if it did, then you anchor it. And if it didn't, you just notice what the differences were.
So noticing those differences, that sounds extremely well placed and smooth and relaxing. But the reality is, when it doesn't quite go the way you want it to, and isn't placed, what are some of your remarks for recovery strategies to get back into that quiet place for the next hole and that mindful state?
Well, if you have an unwanted outcome, it's very important to understand, why it didn't turn out the way that you thought it was. So, was it a decision-making, problem, which is most of the case, or, was it a commitment issue? Were you not committed to what you saw? Was it a doubt issue? Did you feel some wind come up while you were over the ball? Did you question yourself? There's a ton of reasons why the outcome doesn't come out the way you wanted. And what I would say with the elite level golfer, not very often is it a technical reason. So I would say with the elite level golfer, most of the time, it's a mind issue, meaning they either weren't committed to their intention or they created some kind of doubt over the ball. For an amateur level golfer, there may be some technical issues that they're still working on, but what we found is they learn much quicker if they're able to evaluate, what the exact cause was. Because, if somebody hits a shot, and let's say it was a commitment issue to the shot, the amateur golfer always assumes that it was a technical problem. So then they always go into try to this fixed mode of how do I need to now control my golf swing. And once that happens, it's game over, because now their awareness is on trying to control their body.
Yeah.
They have no idea how they control their body in the first place, and then they just get stuck in that vicious cycle.
When you say commitment, Jason, are you referring to the process of completing that stroke and commitment based on muscle memory because of practice? I mean, the golfer knows what that feels like, that commitment feels like. Is that what you're referring to?
So when you say muscle memory, there's really no such thing, right? It's how the neurons in the brain fire. So myelin is, myelin sheet is wrapped around those neurons where they, do a repetitive motion again and again and again. So, when they are hitting that high 8-iron draw, they have a sensation in their body as to how the body needs to perform that. It's never a conscious mental,
right,
I
thinking
need to
process.
do this and I need to do that, and that's what's going to produce this. It's from having that experience of hitting that shot. Now, a lot of people talk about consistency and perfection, and I think that those two things also lead people down a path that might not, probably shouldn't be followed, because, really what you want is you want a very adaptable golf swing, or you want to be able to adapt your swing in baseball, because either the pitch coming at you or the lie on the ground in golf is never the same.
Yep.
So to have an idea, and I think this happens because people practice on the driving range, and they're hitting balls off of perfectly flat lies all the time. Maybe once or twice around are they going to hit, an 8-iron off a perfectly flat lie. So, I try to warn people, what we want is we want a very adaptable, athletic way to perform.
Yeah.
And it's a non-conscious performance. So that I think that's the hardest for people to swallow.
Well, and I think it's counterintuitive to what's been historically trained. And I think that's why you and I've gravitated towards each other, because first of all, we're always antagonistic to the common norm. We're just a pain in somebody's butt. Uh, but we get it, it gets done right, and it's with the theory and science behind it that justifies the remarks. Now, in specific terms, I've worked with a few college golfers, and what I try to do is change that mindset about the training process to say, look, how about if we push this ball into the grass a bit? And just change. It's not pure. It's not the driving range tee box, so that you can adjust and adapt to that. Or let's close our eyes just before you're going to stroke the putt, so that you have that adaptive neurological response to see if your swing is pure. Or with a hockey player, I'll have my defense guys skate backwards with their eyes closed. Some of them I have to blindfold because they cheat. That's just what hockey players do. And so if they get a true sense of validating, you know the ice, you know where you're at. Let yourself go. And here's the proof. You closed your eyes, you went from circle to blue line and stopped. See, look, you know exactly where you are. So with that being said, we're gonna take another break in a minute, but I wanted to make a clear statement to people out there that the mindset of the athlete needs to be, as you said, adaptable. And in the golfing side, it's that adaptable swing that adjusts to whatever conditions might come up. So before we get to the next segment, we'll talk a little bit more about some ideas and some product. But the next segment's about mental conditioning, which is a misnomer for me. What it really means is, how does your brain respond to the changes of environment? And what better place to talk about that than golf? Because nobody predicts the weather. And yet it comes up a lot in the minds of the golfer. So with that being said, let me just mention that we've got Major League Baseball has opened its season yesterday. And in some parts of the country, it was great. In other parts of the country, the weather didn't cooperate, but that's part of what the opening season's all about. And March 29th seemed a bit early. I think there was a reason for that. I don't really care what the reason was. It's opening day, and we just get after it. We have a couple of things that I know for me, this came up when I was talking with a bunch of nurses, and I got in contact with the AV Care. This is the product. It's a hand sanitizer, but it's not alcohol based. So it's got it doesn't dry your hands out, doesn't crack your knuckles. So for those people like doctors and nurses, this is really important. But the generic name like Kleenex is Purell in this world. And for me, with my being outside all the time and working with athletes like you do, Jason, this kind of stuff, especially, this is kind of cool. I got my little belt loop thing. Okay, it looks kind of geeky with my phone on my belt too, but this stuff really, really works. And it's made in America, so it's called Germ Block. It's made by AV Care. They're a Tennessee-based company in good old Pulaski, Tennessee. They're one of our newest sponsors as well. So you can get that on my website. If you go to 360mindset.com, you can find that on the website. The other thing this is a constant for me, it's Empower. It's a hemp-based surface lotion. It's not THC, it's hemp, but the CBD that's in it takes care of my baseball hammered hands and point guard riddled knuckles from basketball. And I know from, I actually have another question for you about that with golfers. Are they tested? Are the pros tested for drugs and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't follow them that closely. I know with baseball and football and stuff. This is important to know because this does not get in the circulatory system. And first of all, it's CBD, so it's not going to ping the test. But it is one of the best, for me anyway, surface aromatic therapeutic essential oils I've ever had. It's called Empower Spa Oils, and you can find that on my website as well. Thank you for that consumer-based pause. It's always hard for me to do that because I just use it. I love this stuff. But I got to run a business, right? Got to run a business. So our next segment is mental conditioning and the influences of the environment. Now, look at Jason. I get it. You've got awareness, the mindfulness, and in a perfect world, the golfer's just there every moment from every hole. The batter, the pitcher, the quarterback, every moment they're there, right? But there's stuff outside of that world, that mental complex, that it starts to rain, and you didn't expect it to rain because when you started, the sun was shining and the birds were chirping, and it starts to rain, and it starts to kind of every drop causes me to come a little less away from the mindfulness stuff. What do you do? How do you prepare
Well,
them?
again, it's all the thoughts that you're having. So, one, recognize that if it's raining, if you decide that the rain is going to be the cause for you to shoot a big number, then it's probably going to be the cause for you to shoot a big number. But in the same token, if you look at the rain and you go, wow, I haven't played in the rain in a while, this is a challenge. And then you go about it with that, again, playful, creative, let's see what I can do in this new situation attitude, then your mindset's completely different. So it all goes back to awareness and mindfulness, and how you approach every situation is going to determine greatly that the outcome and the attitude that you bring, to the question.
Mm-hmm.
How when you do ask that question, the attitude in which you ask the question has a huge influence on the outcome of the action.
So the golfer has a caddy, and there's conversations that go on between caddy and golfer. In your work, are you considering those influences in maintaining the mindfulness state, that sense of quiet, so that you give instructions to them as well?
100%. I think the caddy is probably the most influential, important person in the team. I work very closely with all the caddies that I work with my professional golfers. I understand that they're the only person that can have communication with the athlete while they're out performing. And so their mindset and how they're approaching the decision making, as well as their nutrition and hydration,
Mm-hmm.
is as critical as the athletes, because if the caddy's running out of steam and they're not able to be the other influence in the decision making, because they're tired, or they have blood sugar's low, or they're lacking hydration, then it's going to affect the team. So it'd be like having a Formula One driver. His pit boss is not 100% when the car's pulled in, during a pit stop. So it's by far that critical that the caddy's mental state and ability to control their emotions while they're playing, is a close second to the actual athlete.
So where does things like tone of voice, body posture, nonverbal expression by the caddy play into the systemic processes that support that mindfulness state?
Yeah, I mean, it's most of the cases out there, the caddies and players have a long relationship, and the caddy knows, or the player knows exactly, what the caddy's thinking, through the nonverbal cues. So just the caddy being aware
Mm-hmm.
that when they're doing this thing, the player knows exactly what it is that they're not saying, but their body is saying. So, just understanding that and knowing that, hey, this isn't the time for me to do this, because, if the player doesn't believe that I believe, then it's going to be hard for the player to bring, the right attitude to the performance.
Are there particular nutritional things you recommend be in the bag that promotes the chemical state of being that is helpful to mindfulness?
Well, I mean, the brain uses a tremendous amount of glucose, so giving your brain the right nutritional balance between hydration and good carbs and good fats is very important. At the elite level, they all have nutritionists and they all have very specific diets. But for the amateur golfer, I would say, find some kind of bar, nutrition bar. If it can be organic, fantastic. And I would say try to eat half a bar every 6 holes.
Okay.
And then I'd also say that you want to make sure that you're drinking 2 or 3 bottles of water during a round of golf as well, because dehydration affects your ability to focus, just like the brain being starved of glucose.
So the full 18, we're looking at about maybe close to 2 liters of water, and a supply of anywhere from 3 to 5 bars, depending on the size of the bar, to get you through the round of 18.
Well, I would say, maybe 3 bars, but just half a bar per stick. So it doesn't have to be a whole bar.
Yeah.
And it depends on what it is. I mean, it could be a handful of nuts and a banana.
Gotcha.
But they definitely have to have, by the time you're hungry or by the time you're thirsty, it's too late.
So for me as a golfer, then, if I was going to go out to Augusta, is it convenient that Easter is a few days before I go out or not?
I mean, I think it works out well this year because there's enough of a break between Sunday, Easter, and the Thursday round of golf.
That's a good answer I'm looking for. That's the answer I'm looking for. So I can stoke up on my chocolate.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. Because I can just imagine people like Phil Mickelson and the kids, hard-boiled eggs, Pez. I want to see a Pez, a yellow Pez chick come out of a golf bag on the 5th. That would be just so cool to say, hey, got my snacks, right here.
Right.
Pez would just eat that up, figuratively speaking, of course. Okay, that's my very futile attempt at humor. All right, so we're getting close to our third break, but in setting that up a little bit, I want to ask you about coming back a little bit to the weather. We talk about the commitment to that performance process, whether it's a golf stroke, hitting a baseball, throwing a pitch, a quarterback, receiver, whatever. And that commitment, now you get the weather, that's one element, but then what does the weather do to the environment you're in? How do my feet feel? When the ball hits, or my club hits the ground and makes that splash, and I'm at the tee and it makes a splash, that's bad. That's a bad condition. I know you're at the risk of you repeating some things you've already said, which I want you to do if that's the case, but are those circumstances that are problematic and test how dry someone's powder is, their resiliency to maintain that commitment, not only to the stroke and the action, but to their quietness, to stay within themselves and be mindful of that process?
Well, I would say this. A few years ago at Torrey Pines, Brent Snedeker and his caddy, Scotty Bale, had one of the most incredible finishing rounds of golf, maybe ever, in extreme weather. So San Diego, we had a freak storm come through, lost a bunch of trees at Torrey Pines. But I remember hearing from Scotty Bale that, what they decided to do was they decided that, they knew weather was coming. And so their attitude was, we know that everybody's going to be put off by the weather. So rather than us going into this final round being put off by the weather, how about we come up with a plan to deal with it? And their plan was we were going to have more fun on the golf course the worse the weather got.
That's a good one. That's really nice.
And it worked, right?
Yeah.
They ended up winning the tournament. So, just something that small, like an idea of how you're going to deal with something that's out of your control.
Yeah.
Right. Let's embrace what's out of your control, or out of the team's control in that particular case. And I'm sure that at times, either one of them, would be, start to give in to the conditions, but then the other would pick them up and they go, oh no, remember, we're going to do this. And then, and they just got into it.
Yeah.
And, and ended up playing one of the most amazing rounds of golf ever in extreme weather.
Well,
so,
and I could, I'm just
going to emphasize its mindset.
Just from my memory of that particular tournament, I watched part of it. I get that I'm getting the feeling from that experience that it was uniquely their own approach to that statement. Even though that statement could be applied to almost anybody, in any given conditions, but it appeared to me in that tournament, he made it uniquely his own. You know, his commitment to the shot was uniquely his own, representing the fun he wanted to have with wrapping his brain and arms around the weather issue. And I think that I'm going to ask you for confirmation about that for everybody. You know, make it your own. You know, take ownership of not only the moment, so that you can get through this and stay true to the commitment, but know that it's all about you. It's not, you don't have to make it like somebody else.
Right. If it isn't about you, then it's not authentic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most important part of it is unless you have made that decision for yourself and you're committed to it, you know, then it's non-authentic. And if it's not authentic, then it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, and I think authenticity is a great one point of crescendo to our discussion today is about authenticity. You also mentioned mindfulness, the commitment. Those are also points of emphasis I want to make sure everybody takes away from today. Now, as we get into the next little break or little pause before we go into the last piece, which is performance results, I want to make sure everybody understands performance results is not the ribbon. It's not the trophy. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the emphasis of what do you expect in certain moments through your process. As you said, there's the commitment to the stroke. There might be the performance result of did I see what I wanted? You know, with that 8-iron. Is that it? So there's performance results through staged examination of where you're at in your process. But before we get to too much depth in that, I want to make sure that we talk about next week's shows a little bit. It's about nutrition. Got our nutritionist on next week, as well as a young man who played basketball for me back when I was a high school basketball coach, who's now a chef. And he started his own business where he is creating customized meals in your home. Instead of just the meal coming to you, he's coming with it. He's going to make customized meals. We're going to talk about the snacks, how you can quickly prepare things for yourself and bring them with you. So whether it's half of a bar you buy, Jason, it could be a bar you made in your own little kitchen. You put everything you want into it. So that's what next week's show is all about. And in addition to that, we want to talk a little bit about, as selfish as this is, talk about me, 360 Mindset and our website. We've got the RMP 16 evaluation of human desires. That's our assessment that we do for all of our clients and athletes. Jason, you're a little familiar with that, but you've got that wonderful headband. That is just, I love that. I've still yet to get mine and use it for my baseball guys. But at any rate, biofeedback and information about who you are at a deeper organic level is important if you really want to distinguish not only yourself to you, but distinguish yourself in how you behave so that it's more in line with the authentic aspects of your character and your behavior. So join me at 360mindset.com. Take a look at the RMP 16. Also, make sure that, Jason, repeat again, where can people get a hold of you again? They need to talk to you about all the awareness training, the present moment, the beyond performance sports pieces, all those different wonderful pieces that you have.
Sure. So goldsmithperformance.com, truegolfcompany.com, beyondperformance.com, and then qualiaos.com. So those are all the different ventures that we have that again share that common goal of getting the athlete into the zone or flow state.
Awesome. I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Chopra was here in Denver for a session a while back. Regretfully, I was out of town, wasn't able to make that. I please share my best wishes to Tom and over the holiday weekend before you go to Augusta. I'm gonna put it on the website, people. The recent book that Dr. Chopra has out and his lecture schedule. So check that out on my website at 360mindset.com. Jason, do you have anything out in publication that you want people to be aware of?
We don't, but we're working on a book with the Beyond Performance sport. So
okay.
that's going to be our first book. Tom obviously has 30 or 40
Yeah.
books out. And Deepak, of course, I think has 85 books or something extraordinary like that.
Jason, catch up. Come on, catch up.
Right. But the first venture is going to be this Beyond Performance Sports, where we combine all of these different categories or pillars, so that we can help the individual at home achieve whatever it is they want to achieve.
All right, so now we're into our performance results segment, and I want to start it off by looking at the environment that surrounds the golf course, because the golfer, the caddy, they're coming in from an environment and cultural influences that in many cases has nothing to do with the game, but has an impact on them before they arrive. So I'm going to ask you about the more positive influences that community has on the golfer. You know as well as I do, the LPGA and the PGA do some wonderful things in both local communities as well as nationally, and in some cases internationally, with their involvement in charitable efforts. What is your thoughts about that community activity in sustaining the foundational components of mindfulness and that quiet state you want the golfer to be in once they arrive at the course?
Well, I think that what the Masters is doing with the drive, chip, and putt is growing the game. Obviously, the PGA Tour, like you said, they donate to charitable causes, whatever city they're in. It's absolutely amazing. So I think the professional golfer does feel like a part of what they do is giving back to the benefit of society. So I think that helps. Most of the people that I work with have their own charities as well. So golf might be different than a lot of other sports where it seems like there is an emphasis on growing the game, but also there's an emphasis on how can I help give back, to different communities, either where they live or just society in general. How can they give back for being as fortunate and getting to play this game that they love for a living? So it's that compassion and gratitude, I think, serves everybody as far as mindfulness goes.
Are you ever faced with those kinds of efforts becoming distractions to the mindfulness process at all? And if so, what do you do to adjust?
Yeah, at the professional level, it's just part of the game. So they all have their media commitments, and and that's everything that's kind of off course.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that we deal with are all the on course things. So if we know we have a certain amount of time to get the things done that we need to get done, then we structure our training around that schedule. And I think it's to me, the thing that I'd like to see all the athletes get is more rest and recovery away from the golf course. So, I would say that not the players that I work with, but other players, I've noticed that their commitments outside of golf tend to have an adverse effect on their on-course performance because they're just not able to get done all the stuff they need to get done, or they're just constantly being distracted from the things that are happening off course.
So those thoughts kind of hang in the subconscious, and maybe in some cases just right up front, because you mentioned the covert thought process, and that could bump into some things if they don't clear that mind.
Yeah, I think it's time. They just feel rushed. They don't feel like they're able to tick all the boxes that they need to tick to be in a state where their belief system allows them to perform at their highest level. Or they're just not getting enough rest. They play too many events. So in baseball, as pitchers have so many days after they've pitched a game to recover. Well, golf is different. They're traveling on Monday, they're playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, traveling on Monday, playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that adds up. There's a certain amount of time that they need to actually recover, so that they can be at their best. So, people that play week after week after week, both physically and emotionally, it's difficult for them to play at the highest level.
So when you have the golfer arrives at the clubhouse, are you training them with tools that when they're sitting in the clubhouse locker room, that they're going through a set of routines to get to that state, to clear the thoughts that they feel might be distractions, to put them in a different bucket, and then get layered into the right places?
I would say most of the stuff that we do, happens either before they get to the golf course in that regard, or after they get home from the golf course, and then we do our on-course stuff while we're at the golf course. But normally when they show up, at the level that I'm coaching, they have a very particular routine that they get there and they either do their physical warm up and then they eat, and then they get to the practice range and then we kind of start our day. So sometimes people eat first and then do their physical warm up. It just really depends on the athlete. So I would say that it's not that structured.
Yeah.
The athletes that I do work with, I'd like them to do some mindfulness, focus band rehearsals before they even get to the golf course, just to be familiar with that mental state.
Yeah.
Remember that this is in my control, that I do have the ability to regulate the frequency of my brain. I think that's just as important as going to the gym and warming up your body.
Do you think their routine might have some cognitive posturing that gets them into that mindful state?
Well, again, we're talking about attitude, right? So, if you go to the weight room and you have an attitude that I really don't want to be here today, then you're probably not going to be very productive in the weight room. But if you show up to the weight room and you're ready to go and you feel like, man, I'm just going to crush it today, you're probably going to have a very good workout. So it's that attitude, of the mindset that you bring to the action that ends up being, the X factor that could either, have you holding the trophy at the end of the week or, coming up one putt short.
Yeah, it's that, and you're talking about positivity, the cultural wrapping of positivity around what you do. I know with my football players, be it a college or a pro, I ask them, they don't always do it, but I ask them to put visual emblems that are cognitive cues to get them into that awareness place about strength, power, the twitch that they need on the field. But it's a reminder of how to, in their mind, get to that place. All right, so we're coming close to our close. So with that being said, talk to me about the Masters and who you think, or not so much who, but what should viewers watch for to see if a golfer is in that state, is in that mindful place, committed to the process? What would you encourage them to look for as they're watching the broadcasts?
Well, to me, it's how they're looking and what their body language looks like. There are certain golfers that when they're walking down the fairway, their body language describes, what's going on internally. While a player's over a ball, it's easy to see if everything looks quick. I like to see very deliberate actions from athletes.
Mm-hmm.
To a lay person, it might, come across as looking poised. It's those subtle things that, for whatever reason, Tigers chip in at Augusta. I think it was the 16th hole where the Nike logo rolls into the cup. If you go back and you watch that, what you'll notice is how long he takes to make that decision as to what shot he's going to commit to. But you also see the eye movement and the head movement and the body language looks very deliberate and very poised. So, to me, I wasn't surprised at all, with that outcome. I think you was going to chip in. No, it was that difficult of a shot.
Yeah.
But I knew it was going to be a good shot just based on that. So, those kind of things I think are the things that somebody at home could learn from and pay attention to during the Masters.
Does the course play they had prior to coming into Augusta give any indication as to mindset and commitment to Augusta, or is it because each course is so different and the conditions might change and give you different obstacles, it doesn't matter?
I think it just depends on the athlete. Some people like to come into that week feeling like they just played, and other people like to come into that week feeling well rested. So I just think it really depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to make a broad generalization as to what works best for everybody. So, that's I think, the individual has to decide, do I feel like I want to come in just coming off a competition, or do I feel like I want to come in feeling 100% rested?
So here's a setup question. I'll be interested in how you answer this. So who's going to win the Masters?
Well, Justin Rose, in my opinion, would be the person that I think he's playing really well. I know I have a biased opinion in that regard, but I think he's got as good of a chance as any. And so if he's able to play and be athletic, I think he's going to be right there.
And the reason I called it a setup question, because you can always answer the lowest score is going to win.
Sure.
But I wanted you to commit to a name, and Justin is one that you're very familiar with. There are some competitors to Justin that seem to follow, not maybe exactly, but seem to follow that strategic process that you're talking about, the mindfulness, that quiet state, going from hole to hole and visualizing, what did I want out of that? Did I get what I want? If I didn't, what am I going to take from that to the next hole? What are some of the players that you think coming into Augusta are going to be a challenger to Justin? Because they're kind of set up for this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to win this tournament. I look at the Masters as the Super Bowl for golf. And there's very talented golfers. Golf is one of those sports where, you have, 20 guys that, if somebody's really having an amazing week, it'd be easy for them. When I say easy, you could see how somebody could just have a great week and end up winning because the talent is there. And I think what you said with the Mickelson quote, a lot of times it comes down to just half a putt per round, could make the difference. And that's how tight, the top level golfers are as far as their skill levels go. So, I think there's a lot of guys that are playing really good golf. I don't know if who it might be that shows up that week, but the talent level on the PGA Tour is absolutely incredible.
Well, the two things I think that you said that are key are who shows up and there is talent. I think there's such a good concentration of interesting talent, varied talent. You look at from people like Bubba Watson to Spieth to even Tiger Woods coming back, and then you add Justin Rose, who's the consistency of a golfer like that is amazing to watch. And you know that at any time he could have the round that brings home the trophy for him. So as we say that, I want to thank you again, Jason, for taking the time. I know we've worked really hard to try to make this happen. I wish you the best and safe travels to Augusta, and hope that we can do this again sometime and talk in more detail about the processes that you, Goldsmith, Performance, and the True Golf programs that you have. And I too am envious of you because I know Tom and I know Dr. Chopra, and really appreciate who they are and what they've contributed to just life in general, not to mention human performance. So, Jason, thank you so much. Have a great day today.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Awesome. Take care. Well, that was Jason Goldsmith on KUHSdenver.com. We are so grateful for being here. To my international people, we're still on the air with them. But we're going to say goodbye and leave you with, as we always do, make sure you take a breath and keep being who you are.